Medeiros. Matty Bowen, this little magician. Way for a nester, and he goes through. Darius Boyd has turned it inside out. He's away, Uarte. He's got the field goal. He's got the premiership. Oh, Taumalolo up the middle. Ponga, big step. Caleb Ponga. It's gone inside of the Roosters. Tedesco.
Well, cometh the hour. Cometh the champion players.
Hello and welcome to Nine's Wide World of Sports, joined by Peter Sterling and Brad Fittler. Gentlemen, great to see you.
Hey,
now, we're here today to talk about the Rugby League Players Association Awards, and this is a great way to take a look at the achievements of players both on the field and off the field. And I guess what makes these awards unique is that they're peer voted, and I know for you, Peter, that's basically means the most.
No doubt. Look, it's a bit of a cliche, but when you are recognised by your peers, it is the greatest compliment you can receive. I think when you finish your career, you know, it's nice to have all those awards that you may have accrued during a period of time, but the way that your teammates and your opposing players feel about you is pretty much, I think, the greatest thing that you can take from the game. So for them to say that you are the best player in a particular year, I think it's right up there with the very best you can achieve.
Yeah, that was the compliment, wasn't it? Being a player that everyone wants to play with.
Yep.
And this ends up voting that. It's not voted by people who watch, but it's voted by people who are playing. So they're always going to give you the best indication.
Players are the best judges. They're out there, they're alongside through that 80 minutes. They see things that a lot of other people don't see. You know, the little things that you do, the sacrifices that are made on the field. Your teammates see that and acknowledge that, and a lot of that can be missed by people who are, I guess, you know, aren't as closely involved or sitting up in the stands. They see the flamboyant, spectacular stuff, but just not the little nitty-gritty things that ultimately add up to be the most important things.
Unless you're there and you do it, Freddie, it's almost impossible to understand what players go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Pete said, it's off the ball. A lot of the time it's off the ball stuff, or it's, you know, players really recognise when other players are playing with injuries and what they do in those circumstances. And the big one is how players react under pressure. You can see Jonathan Thurston, he's won it 4 times, and there's no one better under pressure. You know, he played through injury under all sorts of circumstances, but the one thing he always did was you never knew. And when the pressure of the game turned up, he turned up.
Well said. OK, now let's chat to Clint Newton, who is the CEO of the RLPA. Clint, thank you very much for your time. Give us a little bit of an insight into how these awards kind of came about.
Yeah, well, the first awards were provided in 2004. So a teammate of mine, in Danny Medeiros, and everyone's great mate, won the first one, and that's what really, you know, triggered things off. And from there, it's just grown from strength to strength. And as you've all pointed out right off the bat, it's a peer voted award. It's the only peer voted award in the NRL, and it's voted on by your opponents. And like you guys said, and having been a former player, that it's certainly a tag that you want to sit with you for the rest of your career. Really, is that it's not just your teammates; it's the opposition that think that, geez, I would love to play with that guy, and that's what makes this award so special.
How does the system work, Clint?
So it's voted, you know, so during the period of the year, we work with our player delegates on recognising those players that have been the best players for their team, and then we get the players to vote on it collectively. So obviously we've got, you know, you have 480 players playing in the NRL. They all vote, and then we land with the winner at the end of it. So we've got obviously our 5 finalists that Channel 9 are going to highlight over the coming weeks. And it's not just the men, it's the women as well. So Jessica Surgis won last year in the NRLW. So it's a great achievement for all of them.
You've just detailed why this is different to the Dally M's, pretty much across the board. What's the feedback that you get from the players in regard to this award?
Yeah, we did a fair bit of work, you know, for our 40th year last year, and we went back and we spoke to the likes of Danny Medeiros and Ben Kennedy, and Jonathan Thurston speak so highly of this award, regarding it as arguably one of the most important honours that he's ever received through his career, and he's won 4 of them. So it's just, I think, like you, again, as a player, you want to be known as the player everyone wants to play with, but I think as an opposition player, you also look and you can admire those that you come up against and you battle with throughout the year. So this is a great opportunity to recognise those.
OK, Clint, well, you're spoilt for choice this year. It's been a great season. We thank you very much for your time. We can't wait to see who goes away with the ultimate award.
Thanks very much, and I just want to say thanks to Channel 9. It's a great partnership to have, and this is it's your players, their vote, and our champion. So we're looking for everyone to get behind it.
Absolutely, it's something we're all really excited about here at Nine's Wide World of Sports as well. Clint, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, as we heard, the awards did start in 2004. It's such a rich history. You look through and it's just a who's who of rugby league superstars. So let's take a look at some of the previous winners, and some of them have won it multiple times, including, of course, the superstar that is Jonathan Thurston. Stella, who stands out for you?
It's an honour roll, isn't it, that one? I'm not going back far. I'm going back to 2017 and last year, James Tedesco. And I think Teddy stands out for me because he suffered with serious injuries early in his career, a couple of leg injuries that really, could have stopped his career then. And a lot of time when players do get those type of injuries early in their career, they don't quite come back as good as what they possibly could have done. But he's worked that hard. He's the best player in our game at the moment. And when I look back to last year, Erin, he won every award available, but when you look at his contribution in the grand final, he scores the winning try to wrap it up for the Tricolours. And you look at State of Origin, to win Origin, he scores the winning try there as well. So, the big players rise to the big occasions. But I like the fact that Teddy has worked so hard to get where he is, because there was a lot of mountains he had to overcome early on just to get his body right to play this tough game.
It's a great point, and you would remember that Origin winning try very well. Freddie, who's your player that stands out?
Well, my player is to start off with a hooker winning the award. Ben Kennedy also won it, and then Petro Sivanasiva. And this is one award where most LEMs are won by halfbacks or fullbacks.
As it should be, Freddie.
As it should be. And the thing is, Jason Taumalolo, he won it a couple of years ago. He won it in, 2016. And, he doesn't make you look good, Jason Taumalolo. He makes you go well. Like, he takes you forward. He's the engine in your car, and you just have a look at the work he gets through in a game. And he's become one of the players that has more impact in a game than anyone, including halfbacks, including hookers, including fullbacks. Just by taking his side forward through the middle, I think he's inspired a lot of blokes to get a little bit fitter, a little bit leaner, and work on their agility. And he's just shown different parts to players that I don't think we've ever had before. So I think he's inspired a whole heap of kids coming through, and I just love the fact that when he won the award, he also won a Dally M through that time as well. That I think his game's a little bit different to anyone else's we've seen.
I think if you ask Jonathan Thurston, JT would say what an effect he had on his career as well. Like, JT, the greatest competitor that we've seen for ages. But when you've got a guy going forward like that, all of a sudden Jonathan's job's a lot easier as well.
Well, the other JT, the one you're speaking of now, Jonathan Thurston, was the one that stood out for me, and for obvious reason. I mean, where do you start? You spoke about him on the field before, about how incredibly competitive he is. But what I love most about him, I think, is the legacy that he leaves off the field. And these awards don't just handle what happens on the field. It's the outside stuff, the community work that he does, the work he does with young Indigenous kids, the work he's doing at the moment is just testament to the kind of bloke he is. And then you throw in on top of all that stuff off the field, the giving of the headgear to kids. Look at what he did on the field, Sterlo.
And for any skinny kid with big ears, it shows that you can make it to the very top in our game.
Well, I was about to say, speaking of skinny kids with big ears, but that doesn't describe our next guest, I'm sure. Billy Slater, it's great to have you on board. We wanted to get you from a player's perspective on how you view these awards.
Well, it's the only award that is voted on by your peers. So it's a bit like the player's player. Whenever you receive an award like that, it always holds a little bit more because you know who's voting on that award. So, yeah, look, it's a fantastic award. JT's hogged it for quite a few years, and another JT and James Tedesco has got the award twice in the last 3 years. And a little bit like Sterlo, he's been the most consistent player in the competition over the last 3 years, but he's also had those big moments in big games, which is what you expect from your big players.
I was going to say, you had a chance to play with JT. What was he like? At those moments you're just talking about, the 70th minute you need to come up with a try. What was he like to play with?
Well, you just knew you were always a chance when you had great players like Jonathan Thurston in your team. And the thing that I loved about Jonathan Thurston, he was always in the picture when the opposition scored a try. It didn't matter if it was on the other side of the field to where he was defending. He would always give himself a chance to try and stop that try. So the ultimate competitor, but had that class and that football nous to go along with it. I remember the 2008 Origin series, and it was game 3. I actually come off the bench, and and I was floating around through the middle of the field, and JT zoomed around to the left-hand side. And at the time, it was 10-all. And I just knew something was going to happen around him, so I chased him. And sure enough, he showed, and he went straight through the line and drew the fullback, and we scored under the post. And he was just such a pleasure to play alongside, because he made everyone's job easier, and you always knew you were a chance to win the game.
I reckon you'd probably use the same words to describe the likes of a Cameron Smith, believed by many to be arguably the best player we've ever seen. Why hasn't he won this award, do you think?
Yeah, it's quite hard to believe, isn't it? He's won every other award, but look, I think it could have something to do with Cameron's greatest asset, and that's his ability to make everyone else look good. He doesn't score tries very often, although we're showing a few tries here. He doesn't score tries very often. He doesn't make big explosive tackles, so therefore you don't sort of notice him a whole heap, but he doesn't have 5 or 6 big wins in the game, like tries or big hits or line breaks. He has wins every single set of 6, and he's getting his team over the advantage line. He's kicking early. He's leading the line speed when they haven't got the ball. He's putting pressure on the kicker. So sometimes little Cameron Smith can go unnoticed, and therefore he's at his most dangerous. So I think that might have something to do with why he hasn't won this award, but it's an intriguing sort of debate on why he hasn't, because I regard him as one of the greatest players to ever play the game, certainly the greatest hooker. And the fact that he's a little bit like James Tedesco, where he's been ultra consistent through probably a 2-decade period, he's also stood up in those big games, the Origins, the Test matches and the grand finals.
And Billy, who's to say he doesn't win it this year? If your teammate or your old teammate doesn't, is there a standout for you?
Or next year, Sterlo.
Have you heard something?
Who stands out for you apart from, say, Cameron?
Yeah, look, I think the big names will be there, the Tedescos, Keary. Nathan Cleary has had a super season. I think he's been the form player of the competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes home with a suitcase full of trophies at the end of this season, possibly including the Clive Churchill at the end of the year if they make the grand final. But a couple of guys that have been in the shadows, I think Cody Walker's one. He's just a ultra sort of instinctive player. He can play within structure within the team, but he's got that ability to change in a split second and go from a ball player into a runner, and we see him here scoring tries, and he's had a super season and a big reason why the Rabbitohs are in premiership contention. The other guy is someone that's been in Nathan Cleary's shadow, and that's Jerome Lewis. Now, Jerome probably wasn't held in the regard of Nathan at the start of the season, but he sets up so many opportunities for the Penrith Panthers. He's got just as many try assists and scored more tries than Nathan. Although Nathan scored a hat-trick on the weekend, he might have caught him by now. But, those two guys I think are smokies. But, your big names will always be there because they're so consistent on the field. OK,
Billy, we thank you very much for your time. We look forward to chatting to you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Just speaking quickly about Jerome Lewis there, he was voted the 3rd best sledger this year by other players. Do you think that stuff comes into it when players are voting on these awards?
It depends on the type of sledge. If it's well aimed and you walk away from the game thinking, yeah, got me there.
But if it's just that annoying...
It's about the competitiveness, Maybe that's a little bit of it. I'm going to throw an out, mate, King Gutho. I think he's a chance. I think he's well respected around the place, and this season this year has been fantastic. Don't know if there's a lot of sledging in Gutho.
A lot of effort.
Yeah.
There's so much effort in Gutho. He leaves nothing for the change rooms. He leaves it all out there.
OK, well, we'll find out who the nominees are in next week's episode, so make sure you're watching. Brad Fittler, Peter Stelling, thank you very much for your company here. It is the Rugby League Players Association Awards and the new partnership with Nine's Wide World of Sports. Thanks for your company. See you next week.
We have seen some great champions.
Here's Tedesco!
From battle-hardened heroes to barnstorming trailblazers. Strength, skill,
You're a superstar!
class and consistency. Since 2004, your players have voted for their champion. Since the game began, it has been the recognition of their peers that matters most. Your players, their vote, our champion. The Players' Champion 2020.